The prairie wind carried a faint whistle across the wide Montana ranchland, brushing against the tall, golden grasses as the sun dipped low in the sky. Jack Mercer sat on the edge of his worn wooden porch, boots planted firmly on dusty boards, a chipped tin cup of black coffee between his palms. He had spent years watching that same horizon, the same quiet sunsets, the same lonely rhythm of the days. At 38, Jack had become something of a ghost to the nearby town. Good man, quiet man, kept to himself, worked hard, asked for nothing. He didn't mind the solitude most days. Not after losing his parents, and certainly not after watching his little sister disappear into a life he couldn't reach. Loneliness had become a kind of companion, predictable and dependable. But that evening, the wind carried something different. It wasn't the usual peaceful whisper. It was sharp, unsettled, almost like a cry swallowed by distance. Jack stood, instinctively narrowing his eyes toward the sound. Coyotes didn't cry like that. Neither did cattle. It wasn't an animal, it was human, faint but desperate. He grabbed his hat, swung into his truck, and followed the sound until the road gave up and the earth became uneven. When the cry came again, faint, trembling, Jack cut the engine and listened. His boots dug into the dirt as he followed the noise around a cluster of cottonwoods. And then he saw her. A girl, no, a young woman, maybe 18, was tied to an old barbed wire fence. Her wrists were bound with coarse rope. Her cheek was bruised, hair tangled with dust and dried weeds. Her breathing came in small, shaky bursts, and when she lifted her head, Jack saw a mixture of terror and exhaustion in her eyes. "Hey," he said softly, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "I'm Jack. I'm not gonna hurt you." Her voice cracked as she whispered, Please, please untie me. He's gone. I think he left for good." Jack moved slowly, scanning the area for danger. "Who did this?" She hesitated, shame flickering over her face. "My father." Jack felt something inside him twist. Anger, sadness, a protective instinct he hadn't felt in years. "What's your name?" "Lena," she whispered. "All right, Lena. I'm getting you out." He cut the rope carefully, making sure not to scrape her already raw skin. When her hands came free, she stumbled, legs buckling from hours, maybe all night, being forced to stand. Jack caught her before she hit the ground. "You're safe," he murmured. "You're all right now." Lena gasped, half sob, half sigh, and clung to his arm. He carried her to the truck, wrapped her in his spare flannel jacket, and drove back toward the ranch. She sat trembling beside him, hands tucked into the oversized sleeves, eyes darting nervously at every sound. Jack kept his voice gentle. "You hungry?" She nodded. "I haven't eaten since yesterday morning. And water." Lena swallowed. "A little. Before he got drunk." Jack gripped the steering wheel tighter. He had seen bad fathers before. His own had been harsh, cold, immovable, but he had never seen something like this. When they reached the ranch, Jack helped her inside. The house was simple: a stone fireplace, a kitchen with cast iron pans, a small table, a narrow hallway leading to 2 bedrooms. It smelled faintly of coffee and cedar. Lena sat at the table while Jack heated soup on the stove, her eyes moving slowly around the room like she wasn't entirely convinced she was allowed to exist there. He set the bowl in front of her. "Eat slow." Oh, she obeyed, though she shook with the first few spoonfuls. Jack stayed close but gave her space, busying himself by pretending to straighten things that were already straightened. She finished the soup quickly, almost apologetically. "Thank you," she said, voice small but sincere. "You don't need to thank me," Jack replied quietly. "No one deserves what happened out there." A moment of silence settled over them. Lena rubbed her wrists, red and raw from the rope. "Why were you out there?" Jack finally asked. "If you want to tell me." She stared at her hands, her voice barely a whisper. "I think he wanted to scare me. Or punish me. Or both. He was drunk and yelling that I was ungrateful. That I didn't deserve to live in his house. When he dragged me outside, I thought he was just trying to humiliate me, like usual. But then he tied me to the fence and left. Jack felt his jaw clench. Has he hurt you before? Lena nodded. Not like this. Usually it's yelling, sometimes throwing things, sometimes worse. And you got nobody else? No sisters, aunts, anybody? No. She shook her head. My mom died when I was 12. It's just been him since then. Jack let out a slow breath. You're safe here tonight. After that, we'll figure something out. She looked up, startled. You're letting me stay? Of course, he said simply. I'm not sending you back out there. A tremor passed through her, not of fear this time, but of relief so deep it cracked the edges of her composure. Jack noticed her fighting tears, and looked away respectfully, pretending to busy himself with boiling water for tea. When she finally spoke, her voice was fragile. Nobody's ever helped me before. Not like this. Well, Jack said softly, they should have. He set a cup of tea in front of her, then offered her the small bedroom across the hall. Lena stepped inside slowly, touching the quilt, the little lamp, the old bookshelf like she couldn't believe any of it was real. Jack closed the door halfway, leaving her privacy but not isolation. Hours later, when the ranch had gone quiet, Jack sat alone on the porch again. But everything felt different. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It felt like it was holding its breath. He wasn't afraid of trouble. If Lena's father came looking, Jack would handle it. But he hoped the man stayed far away. Because Jack had known men like that. Men who drowned their disappointments in liquor and rage. Men who needed someone smaller and weaker to blame for everything they hated about themselves. He prayed quietly to whatever forces were listening, that Lena never had to face that man again. Inside, the girl who had been left tied to a fence, slept under a clean quilt in a safe room, for perhaps the first time in her life. By morning, Lena emerged shyly from the room. Her hair was brushed, though still slightly tangled. Jack already had coffee brewing and eggs sizzling in the pan. He glanced at her and smiled gently. Morning. How'd you sleep? She hesitated, then admitted, better than ever. They sat at the table together, Lena eating slowly this time, savoring each bite. Jack noticed how she flinched at any sudden noises, how her shoulders tensed whenever she heard the wind move against the wooden siding. Trauma didn't vanish overnight. He knew that well enough. After breakfast, Lena followed him outside. The ranch stretched endlessly. Rolling fields, weathered barns, dust paths worn by decades of cattle and horses. Sunlight warmed the earth, and the air smelled of hay and pine. You live here all alone? She asked softly. Been that way for years. Doesn't it get lonely? Jack shrugged, eyes scanning the horizon. Sometimes. But it's peaceful. Lena looked around at the open land, the sky stretching wide and infinite. It feels safe. Her voice cracked slightly, and Jack pretended to adjust his hat so she wouldn't feel self-conscious. You can stay as long as you need, he said. Nobody's rushing you out. Lena blinked rapidly. Fighting tears again, she wasn't used to kindness. Her heart didn't seem to know how to hold it. I want to help, she said suddenly. I don't want to just sit around doing nothing. Jack smiled. You don't have to help. But I want to, she insisted. He nodded. All right. Come on. I'll show you the horses. They walked to the small stable where his 2 horses were kept. Sable, a calm old mare, and Ranger, the younger one with restless eyes. Lena approached Sable slowly, reaching out a trembling hand. The mare sniffed her fingers, then nudged her palm gently. Lena smiled, bright, genuine, breathtaking in its innocence. It was the first time Jack had seen her look anything other than frightened or exhausted. She likes you, he said. I've never touched a horse before, Lena whispered. Looks like you've got a natural way with them. They spent the morning feeding the animals, brushing their coats, cleaning the stalls. Jack showed her how to move slowly, how to speak softly, how to breathe around the horses. Lena absorbed everything like a sponge, grateful for the distraction, grateful for something steady under her feet. As the sun climbed higher, Jack noticed her cheeks flush with warmth, her shoulders relaxing little by little. She laughed once, a small sound, but real. And the moment he heard it, something warm flickered in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. Maybe longer. When they paused for water, he offered her his canteen. She took a drink, then looked at him with a strange mixture of gratitude and sadness. "Why are you being so nice to me?" she whispered. Jack didn't answer right away. He looked out over the ranch, listening to the wind press against the fence posts. "Because someone should have been nice to you a long time ago," he finally said. "Because you deserved better than what you got." Lena lowered her gaze. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do now." "You don't gotta know right this second," Jack replied gently. "For now, just heal, eat, sleep, breathe. This place is quiet. Let it help you." Lena nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks silently. Jack pretended not to notice, giving her the dignity of privacy even as her heart cracked open in front of him. She wiped her face quickly, embarrassed. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," Jack said. "You've got nothing to apologize for." And for the first time since he found her tied to that fence, Lena allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she was finally safe. As the days passed, Lena's presence on the ranch grew more familiar, like a soft thread weaving itself into the fabric of Jack's quiet life. She woke early, often before the sun, slipping into the kitchen with quiet steps so as not to disturb him. Jack pretended not to notice, but he heard her every morning, the soft opening of cabinets, the gentle clinking of cups, the tentative rhythm of someone learning to move freely in a place where fear no longer dictated her actions. On the third morning, she surprised him with coffee already brewing and an attempt at scrambled eggs. He stepped into the kitchen, hat in hand, and she whipped around nervously. I hope it's okay," she stammered, eyes wide. "I didn't mean to intrude. I just wanted to thank you for." She gestured vaguely, unable to put words to everything. Jack smiled. "It's more than okay, Lena." She relaxed only slightly, but it was enough to make the room feel warmer. They sat across from each other, steam curling from their mugs. Lena ate slowly, like someone savoring both the food and the moment. Jack watched her quietly, noticing how her cheeks had regained a bit of color, how her hair, washed and brushed, no longer looked weighed down by dirt and fear. After breakfast they went outside together. The sky was clear, the air crisp. Cattle grazed in the distance, and birds darted across the open fields. Jack handed her a pair of gloves. "You sure you want to help today?" he asked. She nodded earnestly. "I want to feel useful." "All right then," he said. "Let's get to it." The work was simple but grounding. Filling water troughs, checking fences, sorting feed. Lena's movements were clumsy at first, she wasn't used to physical labor. But she was determined. She didn't complain when her arms grew tired, or when hay scratched her skin, or when dust clung to her hair. Instead, she pushed forward with quiet resolve. Jack admired that about her. Her grit, her resilience, her refusal to collapse under the weight of her past. By midday, they sat beneath the shade of a large elm tree to rest. Lena leaned back against the trunk, breathing deeply. Jack handed her a canteen. "You're doing good," he said. "Not many people take to ranch work this quick." She smiled faintly. "It feels peaceful. Like the land doesn't care who I am or what I've been through." Jack nodded. "Land's honest. Treat it right, it treats you right." She watched the horizon thoughtfully. "My father never treated anything right. Not land, not people, not himself. Sometimes I wonder if he ever cared about anything at all." "You cared," Jack said softly. "That matters more than whatever he did or didn't do." Her eyes shimmered, but she blinked the tears away. Over the next week, Lena began to settle into a routine. She fed the horses every morning, helped Jack repair fences, and learned how to saddle Sable properly. Her laughter, soft, hesitant, but genuine, started appearing more often. One afternoon, while Lena brushed Sable, Jack paused beside the stable door. He watched as the mare lowered her head gently, leaning into Lena's touch. The girl whispered something to the horse, smiling as if sharing a secret. It struck Jack how much she had changed in such a short time. A girl who had arrived broken, terrified, and exhausted now stood with her shoulders straighter, her voice steadier. She moved with growing confidence, finding her place in a world that finally offered her safety. Jack stepped closer. "You're getting real good with her," he said. Lena looked up, brushing hair from her forehead. "She makes me feel calm." "You make her feel calm," Jack corrected. "Horses sense things. They trust you." A warmth spread across Lena's cheeks. "Nobody's ever trusted me before." Jack shook his head gently. "That's their mistake, not yours." She lowered her gaze, but he saw a tiny smile tug at her lips. That evening, over dinner, Lena hesitated before speaking. "Jack, you can tell me if I'm being a burden." "You're not," he said firmly. "I just don't want to take advantage of your kindness." "You're not," he repeated. "This ranch has been too quiet for too long. Having you here, it's not a burden. It's company." Her eyes softened. "Thank you." But even as peace spread between them, an unspoken worry lingered, one neither dared voice yet. Lena's father had not returned, had not searched, had not called the sheriff. His absence was both a relief and a shadow, always lurking at the edges of their thoughts. One night, Lena woke with a jolt, her breath ragged, a nightmare clinging to her like smoke. She sat up in the dark room, trembling. The silence pressed heavy against the walls. Her heart raced with the memory of rope burning her wrists, her father's slurred yelling, the cold bite of the night air. She couldn't breathe. Panicking, she slipped out of bed, wrapped herself in Jack's old flannel jacket, now hers, and stepped outside. The night was cool, the stars scattered across the sky in a shimmering blanket. She sank onto the porch steps, hugging her knees to her chest. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Then the door creaked softly. Jack stepped out, squinting into the dark until he saw her sitting there. "You all right?" he asked gently. Lena wiped her face quickly. "I'm fine. I had a dream." Jack sat beside her, not too close. He didn't touch her, didn't crowd her. He gave her room to speak or not to speak. "It felt real," she whispered. "Like I was back there. Tied up. Alone." "You're not alone," Jack said softly. She breathed shakily. "I know. But my body, it reacts before I can stop it. Trauma does that. It's not your fault." She looked at him. "How do you know?" Jack stared out at the open fields, moonlight turning the grass silver. "Because I've had nights like that too." Alina's brows lifted in surprise. "You?" "Yeah." He exhaled slowly. "When my folks died, and when my sister left, I got real good at pretending everything was fine. But nights are honest. Sometimes too honest." Lena's voice softened. "What helped you?" Jack considered. "Time, work, talking when I could. And moments like this." He glanced at her briefly. "Just knowing someone's nearby." Lena swallowed hard, emotion tightening her throat. "Thank you for sitting with me." "You don't have to thank me. Ever." They stayed there a while, breathing in the stillness. Lena leaned her head gently against the porch post, not touching Jack but no longer avoiding closeness. It felt safe, warm, grounding. Eventually, she whispered, "I'm scared he'll come back." Jack's jaw tightened. "If he does, I'll be here. And he won't get past me." Lena looked at him. Not as the lonely cowboy who found her, but as a man whose kindness carried weight, whose steady presence anchored her. For the first time since she arrived, she believed him completely. The next morning she was different. Stronger somehow. She worked with more energy, laughed more freely, and even teased Jack about his serious face when he concentrated on fixing the barn door. And Jack felt something shift within himself too. He found his eyes lingering on her, not out of desire, but out of admiration, respect, a growing fondness he hadn't expected and didn't dare name. One afternoon when they were hauling feed across the yard, Lena paused suddenly, frowning toward the road. A truck approached slowly, dust rising behind its tires. Jack's heart dropped. The same battered pickup he had seen countless times around town. The one driven by a man who carried anger like poison. Lena paled. "It's him," she whispered, voice cracking. Jack immediately stepped in front of her, placing himself between Lena and the road just as the truck rolled to a stop. Her father climbed out, swaying slightly even in daylight, anger already burning in his eyes. "Lena," he barked. "Get over here right now." Lena trembled behind Jack. Jack stood tall, voice steady but cold. "She's not going anywhere." The man scoffed. "She's my daughter. I'll take her wherever I damn well please." Jack's eyes hardened. "Not today. Not ever again. You left her tied to a fence. You forfeited your rights the second you did that." Her father's face twisted. "She's mine." "No," Jack said. "She's a human being. And she's done being hurt." Lena clutched the back of Jack's shirt, terrified but refusing to run. Something inside her was changing. A spark of defiance, lighting for the first time. Her father lunged forward, but Jack didn't move. "Touch her," Jack warned. "And you'll answer to me, and the law." A moment of charged silence crackled between them. Then, from the house, the sound of a phone rang. Jack didn't look away as he said quietly, "Sheriff knows you're here. If you were smart, you'd leave before he arrives." Her father scanned Jack's posture, Lena's frightened face, the ranch around them. For the first time, he seemed to realize he was outmatched, not by strength, but by consequence. He spat at the ground, growling, "This isn't over." Jack's voice was calm. "Yeah, it is." The man got into his truck, tires spinning as he sped away, dust curling behind him like a retreating storm. Lena collapsed into a sob, relief shaking through her. Jack caught her, arms steady but gentle. "He's gone," Jack murmured. "You're safe." "He'll come back," she choked. "He always comes back." "No," Jack said firmly. "Not this time. Sheriff's filing charges. I made sure of it. He won't be able to get near you again." She froze, staring up at him. "You did that, before today." Jack nodded. "The morning after I found you. I wanted to be prepared." A soft, stunned gasp escaped her. "Why?" "Because you deserved protection." Jack cupped her shoulders lightly, grounding her. "Because someone should have fought for you long before I came along." Alina's tears fell silently, but they weren't the same tears of terror she had carried for years. These were different. Tears of release, of relief, of something opening inside her chest. Over the next days, she remained shaken but slowly began to reclaim herself. Jack stayed close, not smothering her, but anchoring her with steady presence. They worked together, shared meals, watched sunsets from the porch. And somewhere in the quiet between conversations, a bond deeper than either of them intended began to grow. One evening, as they sat on the porch with warm mugs between their hands, Lena spoke softly. "You saved my life, Jack." "You saved your own," he corrected. "I just helped." She smiled, a soft, meaningful smile. "No, you did more than help. You gave me a home. You gave me hope." Jack felt his chest tighten with something deep and unfamiliar. "You brought life back to this place," he admitted. "I didn't realize how empty it was until you filled it." The air between them thickened. Not romantic, not rushed but profound. Two souls bruised by life finding solace in one another. Lena leaned her head gently against his shoulder, trusting him fully. Jack didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then slowly, carefully, he rested his cheek against the top of her head. The wind whispered through the grass. The sky blood orange and pink. The world, for the first time in years for both of them, felt whole. They didn't need to say anything else. The promise was already there, healing, belonging, a future not haunted but chosen, together.